Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, presented by #basketball.com. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and thank you for joining me tonight for the real NBA opening night. I know NBA opening night was last night, but tonight is pretty much the real opening. This is when a majority of the teams are actually playing tonight, and you can legitimately could watch, 5 full games in one evening if you are a lunatic like I am, and have multiple monitors open and one on your TV, and just soak in as much NBA as humanly possible. And that is basically what I ended up doing tonight, checking out at least a handful of the games. And so tonight is really we're going to be looking at only a handful of the games. I don't want to belabor on every single one of these games because I want you to get the most out of this podcast. And I want to make sure we aren't just going through each box score, even though the name of the podcast is Watching the Boxes. We will be watching the boxes for you, so you don't have to. And we're going to bring up games that we think are interesting. And we are going to also be focusing on, just surprising performances, someone who maybe played good or bad, and looking at people we are targeting after, just one night. The sample size is as literally as small as it could possibly be for these teams. But we're going to be looking at guys we are targeting, guys we're taking flyers on in standard leagues and deep leagues. But tonight, it's just me flying solo. Maybe Tyler will join us later. No promises for everybody out there. But let's go ahead and get started with news. There's actually quite a bit of news here on opening night. And I want to go over the fantasy impact of some of the things that happened either tonight or over the evening last night. Bobby Portis and Nico Mirotic, as you probably already know if you listened to yesterday's podcast, ended up getting in a fist fight. And there's been more information that came out that I'm still incredibly disappointed in the Bulls organization, per usual. It's probably about as low as I've been on the organization in a very long time. But Bobby Portis is only being suspended for 8 games. And that might seem like not much because it seems like Nico Mirotic expects to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So in standard leagues, I am dropping Nico Mirotic. I am moving on. I am taking a flyer on somebody either tonight or tomorrow night or over the next couple weeks, because I just don't want to wait around 4 to 6 weeks for Nico to come back. It's a face fracture. He had to have surgery. And if you remember when Rose broke his face, he actually had blurry vision for like most of the rest of the season. As it was healing, he had to wear that mask, which probably threw off his shot even more. And on top of that, he was afraid of contact because he didn't want to break his face again. And I'm with Rose on that. Like, I don't want to, if I broke my face, I wouldn't want to break my face again either. So a lot of these problems are going to, I think, appear with Nico once he comes back. I'm willing to give him a shot. I'm willing to pick him up and give him a flyer if I have some crap on the end of my bench before Nico comes back. But my guess is Lauri Markkanen is going to be taking a lot of those minutes with Bobby Portis being suspended, and I actually think Lauri Markkanen stays in the starting lineup even after Bobby Portis gets back. Plus, there's going to be animosity in the locker room. If you go up to somebody and punch them hard enough to knock them out and break their face, you're pretty much a scumbag. And the only thing I am getting out of the Bulls camp is that it was apparently a bit deserved. They were going back and forth. They were going at each other. Nico wasn't an innocent bystander in this. He was also escalating the situation. And I'm just hoping, I'm thinking because it was only 8 games, something was warranted for a punch to be thrown. I still don't agree that a punch should have been thrown. And I still think it's a scum move. And I also think Bobby Portis isn't good enough to be playing around with his career like that. So the Bulls in full free fall at this point, and they have a game tomorrow against Toronto. So that will be a real dumpster fire. Let's go on to the other news from tonight. It looks like JaMychal Green rolled his ankle during the Memphis game this evening. And he did not come back and play in this game. He only played 8 minutes, and that opened up some playing time for someone I'm actually going to recommend taking a flyer on. And this might seem an early flyer. It might seem like a little bit of a shot in the dark, but Dillon Brooks, a name that I don't think we've really talked about much at all, ended up playing 29 minutes, scoring 19 points with 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks. He also took 2 threes but didn't make any of them. I mean, that's a 9-category type of guy, and this team is so thin at multiple positions. And Brooks plays the 3, and James Ennis, he only played 19 minutes tonight. He was not effective, but Dillon Brooks was. And it looks like Brandon Wright ended up getting a majority of the minutes at the 4. And Brandon Wright had an okay night, 10 and 4 rebounds, 2 steals. I'm not running to pick him out in a standard league. But and also Carson Parsons, that's not his name. That's a great name, though, Carson Parsons. Chandler Parsons. He only played 15 minutes tonight, too. So all those people who took a flyer with Chandler Parsons at the end of their draft, I'm going to go and reach out there. Probably a bad idea. Same with Tyreke Evans, 20 minutes tonight. I have a lot more faith in Tyreke Evans being able to bounce back. This is only one game. Sample size is low. But Dillon Brooks is going to be my very first recommendation for someone to pick up. Even in standard leagues. In deeper leagues, like 100% pick up Dillon Brooks. He's got the tools to put a line together like he did tonight. That does not mean I'm going to put any money on him in Vegas about him finishing in the top 100, but it does give me makes me pause when I see someone be able to fill up a line like that, getting blocks and steals, and someone who obviously shoots threes. I don't know if he's going to be a great three-point shooter, but like I said, Memphis is so thin, someone has to play. And I think Dillon Brooks has just earned his spot on this team, whether he wanted to or meant to or not. So standard league, it's worth taking a flyer on him. You should always be taking a flyer on people in the first 2 weeks. And so this is where I'm going to go into my 2-week diatribe. Number 1 rule in the first 2 weeks of fantasy basketball is do not panic. Do not panic. It is the single most likely way to set yourself up for failure during your fantasy basketball season. The first 2 weeks, anything can happen. Anthony Davis could start off slow. By the way, he did not. But Anthony Davis could start out slow. Some of your second-round picks might start out slow. The Gordon Hayward thing, that's nothing to panic about. It's something that you got to address, but you should not be panicking. You should not be bulk trading away someone because Gordon Hayward is probably going to be out for the rest of the season. You should be working the waiver wires. And so that's the number 1 thing to do, I think, in the first 2 weeks is hit the waiver wires and hit the waiver wires hard. You should be grabbing guys who have one good game even. And you should always be able to have expendable players on the end of your bench. And you should always be able to take a shot on a waiver wire player because you could end up, in best case scenarios, you end up with a top 70, top 50 player that you didn't even draft. And that's just going to add to your team. And at the worst case scenario is that you get maybe a couple good starts, a couple bad starts, and then you drop that player for another hot hand and you move on with your life. That is why you should be hitting the waiver wires really hard all the time. But the first 2 weeks, it is the most important because that is where you find your gems. That is where you find guys like Robert Covington, Willie Cauley-Stein. One of my all-time pickups was Steph Curry, a game into his rookie year. This is where you are going to make or break a season. And if you're in a keeper league, it might make or break the next few years of your league. So hit the waiver wires hard. Lesson number 2 for I guess goal number 2 for the first 2 weeks is to exploit other people who are panicking. And so Chris Paul tweaked his leg. He did not play tonight in Houston's second game. He did not look that great in Houston's first game. Draymond Green tweaked his knee. he got an MRI. I haven't heard any news on whether from that MRI whether it was serious or not. And yeah, like the people who own those guys are going to be panicking. And the guy who owns Gordon Hayward, he's going to be panicking. And this is the perfect time to exploit those owners. They are thinking Chris Paul is terrible. They're thinking maybe there's going to be lingering injuries all season. And you got to weigh this out too. Do you think Chris Paul's going to have lingering injuries all season? Well, he might have a couple other, since he might only play like 70 games this season, but 70 games of Chris Paul is better than 80 games of Jeff Teague. And so if you can buy low on any players that people are panicking on, this is the perfect time to do it, because new owners, new people to fantasy basketball always panic in the first week because a majority of them are coming from fantasy football. And after 1 week, everybody panics and drops their players and all that stuff. And that's just not how basketball works. It is a larger sample size. So be just aware of exploiting people who are panicking. Be aware of who might be panicking and give it your best shot. And number 3 is sell high. Like on the flip side of that, someone's going to get off to a really hot start on your team. I don't know if it's going to be Enes Kanter or Swaggy P. I don't know why Swaggy P would be on your team, and I don't think Swaggy P is even worth a flyer in a standard league. I think Swaggy P should be someone you stream for 3-pointers. But like I said, if you think someone on your team is a huge Swaggy P fan, pick up Swaggy P and then trade him to that person. That will be fun. That's exploiting people's, I guess that's not panic, but expectations. But in the first couple weeks, a couple lower players are going to break out. Or they're just going to be having a hot start. And this is probably the more difficult thing to figure out. Is Devin Booker breaking out, or is he just having a hot start? Well, it depends. Everyone has a price. And would I trade Devin Booker for Aaron Gordon? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe if I liked Aaron Gordon a little bit more, if it fit my team. But would I trade Aaron Gordon for Kawhi Leonard right now? Hell yeah. I would trade Devin Booker for Kawhi Leonard right now. Even though Kawhi's injured and he might not play the first couple weeks of the season, Kawhi Leonard's a top 10 player. He's going to be MVP candidate. So if you can sell high to people who are panicking, it's like a double threat. And that is my advice for the first 2 weeks of the NBA season. So I hope you all, at the very least, take that away from tonight's podcast. Let's go on to other breaking news, more just sad injury news. Jeremy Lin went down later in the Nets opener in Indianapolis, and it did not look good. It's actually almost shocking video, not as shocking as the Hayward situation, but Jeremy Lin goes down on and just sits there in almost like shock. And he starts grabbing his knee, and he's just like, I'm done. Then he starts pounding the floor. And whenever that happens, he had to be carried out. Whenever you see something like that, it was not a contact hit. When he landed a little. It looks like he tweaked his knee. And I think, someone who's been battling with injuries like Jeremy Lin, he knows when something is serious. And my guess is it's going to be pretty serious. So I'm very sorry for all the Jeremy Lin owners, but I'm more sorry for Jeremy Lin himself. I hope it is nothing serious. I hope it's something that he can be back in a month or two, but that's like best case scenario with how bad it looked, with how bad he reacted. Maybe it's not that bad. So we will find out what happens with Jeremy Lin there, but that does lead to minutes being open on this Nets team, and that also improves the value of D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo Russell having an incredible beginning to his season and his stint in Brooklyn. And now this is kind of D'Angelo Russell's team. He had 30 points tonight with 5 assists, a steal. He took 22 shots, but hit 4 3-pointers. So a very good night for D'Angelo Russell, and sadly Jeremy Lin was also having a very good night, 18 and 4, shooting very well with a 3. And D'Angelo Russell is going to get an uptick in usage, which means he is going to get an uptick in value. I think D'Angelo Russell is going to have a very good season, and his increased usage is just going to help that. And the Brooklyn Indiana game is actually the game I wanted to talk about. It's one of my most interesting fantasy games of the night, and that's probably one of the segments we will be rolling with as we continue the season. This game ended Pacers 140, Brooklyn 131. That is not those are not typos. I actually went out there and said, I'm pretty sure every team is going to average over 100 points this season, except for the Bulls. They are not. They are terrible, and they are going to be really bad. But this game, I mean, everybody was shooting really well, but both these teams are playing at a much higher pace than I thought they would. And I knew Brooklyn was going to play at a pretty high pace, but that is a good sign for teams who are going to be playing the Pacers and going to be playing the Nets, because neither team plays defense. Both teams play at a high pace. So when your matchups are going against either the Nets or the Pacers, and that's something to look for when you're looking for matchups in a head-to-head, who to start type situation, these teams are going to be very exploitable. And that's a really good sign. So the reason I wanted to talk about this game as one of the fantasy games of the night is simply because there's a lot going on with these teams and the rotations, and I found it a very interesting night. There's a lot of players to talk about. So the Nets ended up starting Mozgov. Mozgov only played 14 minutes tonight. And actually, Trevor Booker ended up playing 28 minutes. And Trevor Booker was 20 and 10, 7 for 10 from the field, shooting 70%. So Trevor Booker probably worth a flyer. I do not think Timothy Mozgov is, just capable of playing NBA level basketball. And even in standard leagues, if I need some points and rebounds, like Trevor Booker's not going to tear the world apart. But if I'm in a little bit of a bigger league or in a deeper league, especially, I would be picking up Trevor Booker. The Jeremy Lin injury does open up minutes for someone on this team, but this team still has a plethora of guards that might fit into this role. Alan Crabb, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Karis LeVert. And when you're in a situation like this where you're just, you're not terribly sure who's going to pick up these minutes, it's usually a combination of the it's just usually like everyone in the rotation gets a little bit of a bump in their minutes, and it's not just one person. But in this situation, I'd rather take a flyer on Karis LeVert. And the reason is that because I think the Nets have seen some flashes in Karis LeVert. He is only 23, and he had a pretty good night tonight. In 28 minutes, he had 12 points, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block, and a three-pointer. So across the board, he was kind of filling up the stats. Alan Crabb also had a pretty decent night, 12 points, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, and an assist, and a block. So he also filled up the stat line. I think they're going to kind of share the load. I think they're both going to get just more minutes. But if I had to take a flyer on one of the two, I'm taking it on LeVert. In a standard league, I think there's probably better players on the waiver wire. Neither one of these guys terribly impressed me as a 9-cap player, but in certain situations, and the fact that they're going to be getting more minutes, I would keep an eye on both Crabb and LeVert on the Brooklyn Nets, simply because there has to be minutes to go around. DeMarre Carroll and Hollis Jefferson both had pretty solid nights. This game is going to be a little skewed because of the high scoring, but they both, filled up their stat lines, looked like they are standard league relevant. Carroll still taking a lot of shots, not hitting as many as he takes. Well, I guess that would mean he shot 100%, so that's not possible. But both of them, they're all right. I guess they're standard league relevant. To me, they're almost waiver wire. I'd rather have Hollis Jefferson. I think he's standard league relevant simply because he could be a kind of a steals monster type of guy. Let's go over the Pacers, though. Oladipo came out swinging, and he ended up tailing off in the second half. The Nets kind of tried to shut him down a little bit. I don't think they did a very good job, but Oladipo, 22 points, 4 steals, 4 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 3-pointers. He is going to, I think, have a breakout year simply because the Pacers don't have anyone to lead this team, and Oladipo is capable of leading a team, at least a bad team. And so I think Oladipo is going to have a breakout year. I'm a fan of his. I am going to wait on him. I'm not going to try to sell him high unless I'm going to get some stud. But I'm keeping an eye on him. If I own Oladipo, I would consider selling him high maybe later in the season, but I'm going to see how good he could possibly get. Because if you remember a couple years ago, down the stretch for Orlando, he was ranked in the top 20 over the last couple months of the season. And if he's that kind of player where he was normally being drafted later in the later rounds, if he becomes that kind of player, you're probably on your way to winning the league. Some of the other players, though, that I find interesting on the Pacers, some that we have talked about in the past, Darren Collison. We actually liked Darren Collison quite a bit. Darren Collison had a monster night. 21 points, 11 assists, 2 steals, and 3 rebounds, plus 1 3-pointer. I would pick up Darren Collison if he is available in any of your standard leagues. He should not be. Go pick him up right now. I'd pick him up over Dillon Brooks, that's for sure, but I'm taking a flyer on Dillon Brooks, who was on Memphis, if you remember that from, 5 minutes ago. Like, pay attention, guys. It wasn't that long ago when I was talking about Dillon Brooks. But Darren Collison, go pick him up in standard leagues. If he is not owned right now, go do that. Bogdan Bogdanovic, and make sure I'm saying that right. Oh, it's Bojan. See, I'm going to get my Bogdanoviches all screwed up. Bojan, which is not how you say it because I am Midwest and Eastern European names escape me, though I do respect Eastern Europe, and I've been there within the last year, and it's a beautiful place, and I love the people there. So do not take my brutal mispronunciation as disrespect to the fine people in Eastern Europe. I just need someone from Eastern Europe to help me out. That's all. If you're from Eastern Europe and you're listening right now and you have some sort of guide or course that help me pronounce these names better, I will look into it. But Bogdanovic had scored 14 points and had the infamous zeros across the board. Actually, he had 1-3. Dang it. He had 0 blocks, 0 steals, 0 assists, 0 rebounds. That's amazing. And that's why I don't think he is standard league relevant. You might want to stream him to get some points, but that's all he's good for. Miles Turner, 21 and 14, 4 blocks. He's going to be very good. And Thaddeus Young, a guy people were not excited about. Fantasy, I guess, metrics people, analytics people really love Thaddeus Young. And some of us, I wouldn't call us experts, I'd call us analysts. We're definitely snagging Thaddeus Young late in drafts because he's not a sexy name. He's not an interesting guy. He's not going to average a triple-double. And the average fan probably has really never even heard of Thaddeus Young. And Thad Young had 17 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks with a 3-pointer. Thaddeus Young should be owned in all leagues. Stop kidding yourself. Stop pretending that Thaddeus Young isn't a standard league top 100 player. He is top 100 often, and he should be owned in your league. Go pick him up right this second. Not all of his games are going to look this good. In fact, Thad Young often gets off to really good starts. So pick him up if he's available, ride out that good start, and then trade him to some sucker. That is my advice for Thad Young. In deeper leagues, like I said, Crabbe or Levert should be owned. But on the Pacers, Corey Joseph, Lance Stevenson, and Domantas Sabonis all got good minutes off the bench. And I think you kind of figured Lance Stevenson was going to get some run. The Pacers kind of, love him, and Lance kind of demands some playing time. He had 16 points and 3 assists, a steal and a block. He did Lance things. He shot the ball a ton. Actually, he shot the ball somehow the most out of anyone on this team, even though he only played 24 minutes. That sounds like Lance, doesn't it? But, he's going to score, and he's worth owning in deeper leagues. Corey Joseph is going to run the backup point there. He had a nice line across the board in deeper leagues, 11 points, 4 assists, 2 steals, a block. and 3 rebounds with a 3. That's just a nice little line for your deeper leagues. But Domantas Sabonis is actually kind of the more surprising guy. He was 7 for 7 for tonight with 16 points and 7 rebounds. Sabonis probably should be owned in deeper leagues. I am not picking him up in standard leagues. I do not think the minutes are there, but do be aware if there is ever injury on the Pacers that Sabonis will probably get some more playing time. And it looks like he did play well in this Pacers offense. So that is terrible news about Jeremy Lin, like I said. But I want to move on to the next fantasy game of the evening. And which one are we going to do? I think it's going to be Miami, Orlando. I like to do the games that aren't the fantasy games are not picked because they're the most exciting game that happened tonight. I watched Washington, Philly. It was great. Embiid was great. Beautiful Bob Covington, who obviously will probably get a shout out during every episode. As if you are a longtime listener, Beautiful Bob's going to get a shout out in every episode. He hit 7 3-pointers tonight. All you sleeping on Beautiful Bob, you are ignorant, and you need to turn your wicked ways around and focus on the beauty that is Bob Covington. But we're not going to focus on that game because I assume most of you watched that game. And it was a really fun game. And Ben Simmons looks really good. And Markelle Fultz doesn't look that bad. He probably should be owned or at least at the bottom of a bench in standard leagues. TJ McCollum, he looked like he's not going to play that well. It's too early to tell for most of this stuff. So I'm not making any drastic moves. Like I've said, in the first 2 weeks, make no drastic moves, especially with your top 70 players. And really, I'm going to feel that team out. I'm going to continue to watch Philly. Marcin Gortat had a really great night. Maybe he's not as bad as we thought he was going to be. If you got him later in drafts or he's available, pick him up. These are some of the things you should be looking for in these box scores. But I'm not going to focus on that game because you probably already saw that game. We're going to do tonight the Miami Heat versus the Orlando Magic, 2 teams I'm very interested in. The Heat I was most interested in because we came into this season not really knowing what their rotation was going to be. And tonight we found out they ended up starting Dragic, Dion Waiters, Richardson, Kelly Olynyk at the 4, and Hassan Whiteside at the 5. Now, I'm not sure why they started Kelly at the 4, but he only played 21 minutes tonight. So it doesn't look like it's not looking like it's a permanent setup for Kelly Olynyk, but it also could have been because Kelly Olynyk had to guard Aaron Gordon. It is pretty hard to guard Aaron Gordon. And so Hassan Whiteside obviously did Hassan Whiteside things, 26 and 22 rebounds. That's very, very silly. But Kelly Olynyk, he hit a 3. He had 10 points and 3 assists. In deeper leagues, it is definitely safe to own Kelly Olynyk. I'm keeping an eye on him in standard leagues, but as sometimes Kelly Olynyk can provide standard league value when he plays 30-plus minutes, but it didn't look like he got 30-plus minutes tonight. I'm more interested in this rotation because you have James Johnson, you have Tyler Johnson, you have Justice Winslow, you have Wayne Ellington, you have Adebayo, you have Josh Richardson, and Dion Waiters. All these guards who can play somewhere between the 2 and the 3. And I didn't know what the Heat were going to do. And I actually don't think the Heat still know what they're going to do, but a distinct pattern definitely appeared. Waiters and Richardson getting the start and getting a bulk of the minutes. I'm not sure how long that's going to last. The Heat did lose to the Orlando Magic, which is not a great sign, but we will see moving forward. I'm going to continue to keep an eye on the Heat. James Johnson, in only 19 minutes, had 11 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, 1 steal, and 1 block. That's a very good line for only playing 19 minutes. And he has the capability of being a kind of a fancy stud. He was kind of a breakout from last year. And I think a lot of people drafted him thinking he was going to be a breakout this year, but 19 minutes isn't good. And the fact that he is coming off the bench and not even playing the most off the bench is a little worrisome. Kelly Olynyk taking some of his minutes. I don't like the look of that. And also Justice Winslow being in the mix now. If you remember, Winslow was injured most of last year. And really, he is going to take up the minutes of almost everybody on this team. Johnson, the other Johnson, Richardson. Winslow is someone that they think has a lot of potential and they want to get going. And he played 23 minutes tonight. He was 10 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. He's another guy who can kind of fill it up in 9-cat leagues. And I'm going to keep an eye on him as well. And Tyler Johnson, another guy who was good last year. I don't think he's going to be good this year. So we're kind of seeing play out what we thought would play out, is that there would not be enough minutes to go around, and everyone would play around 20-some minutes. But the fact that Josh Richardson and Deion Waiters end up playing, over 35 minutes is a good sign for both of their fantasy values moving forward. If you drafted either one of them, I would keep them for now and just see what happens. If you drafted Tyler Johnson or James Johnson, I would hold on to James Johnson. Tyler Johnson, I feel, is going to be the person who hurts the worst in this situation. I'd maybe give it one more game and then let him go. Sorry, Tyler Johnson. Bon voyage to the waiver wire with you. Let's go over to the Orlando Magic, another team whose rotation I was very interested in. And promising signs out of the Orlando Magic, because Aaron Gordon actually played at the 4 tonight for 34 minutes. Can you believe it? Can you believe that there is a proper rotation in Orlando? And they won too, so they're not going to be messing around with this rotation, hopefully, for a while. Aaron Gordon did not shoot the ball very well, but stayed very active, 14 points, 5 for 6 from free throw. That's always good to see. Hit a three-pointer, had 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 blocks. He is a breakout candidate, and I did draft him in quite a few of my leagues, and I'm looking forward to playing him quite a bit. But actually, in better news is Nikola Vujovic. Vujovic played 32 minutes tonight. Bismack Biyombo only played 16 minutes. The problem with Vujovic was the fact that he was playing less than 30 minutes a night last year, still putting up standard fantasy value, but you always wondered, if he was playing 5 more minutes, he would be a much better player. Is this what's happening in Orlando right now? After game 1, kind of looks like it, especially since Bismack played only 16 minutes. I'm not 100% confident. I'm going to have to see what happens. Like I said, the sample size is so low right now. We just don't know what's going on. So keep an eye on this situation, but Vujovic could be more valuable if it looks like he's just going to be playing bulk 30 minutes. I would continue to hold on to him. He ended up getting 19 points, 13 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and an assist. And he shot 3 3-pointers. Shot 3 3-pointers. He missed all of them. But if Vujovic ends up getting an extra 3, 1 3 a game, or 0.83 a game even, he's gonna have a great fantasy year. And so I would keep an eye on him. I would maybe try to even move and see if I can position myself to an owner. I mean, after seeing a line like tonight, I don't think the owner's going to want to sell low. But if you can get Vujovic on the cheap, I would try to do it. I would try to move on him. Peyton, Fournier, and Ross kind of rounded out the starting lineup here, and they all had pretty good games. And I was kind of shocked to see Ross and Fournier actually, scoring the ball in bulk. Terrence Ross getting rebounds and assists and steals, which is not normally like Terrence Ross. I think if Terrence Ross is available in a standard league, you might as well take a flyer on him. He is going to start for this team. Fournier has been prone to streaks where he looks very good. A couple of seasons ago, he looked like he was going to break out, and last season he kind of fell off. I mean, he's if you're in a bigger league, obviously Fournier and Ross should both be owned. But yeah, in a standard league, I'm not excited about Fournier. Even with this 23-point game tonight, not excited about him at all. So I'm not picking him up if he's available in my standard league. I might put Ross at the end of my bench. I would stream Fournier, of course. That makes perfect sense. The other two guys on this team that I was interested in is Jonathan Simmons and the other Jonathan Isaac. And I want to see what kind of what kind of position they put these two guys in, the two Johns. If they were going to get into the game a lot, a little, and how affected they would be playing on the court. And Jonathan Simmons ended up playing 28 minutes tonight, so he looks like he is going to be the sixth man for this team, which I find, I guess, a little bit interesting, but it does make sense. They are starting two guards. One of those guards is playing the three, so putting Simmons at the three makes kind of a lot of sense. He had 12 points and 2 rebounds, shooting 50%. Not a crazy exciting night, but in deeper leagues, he should be owned. The other John on this team, Jonathan Isaac, he only played 17 minutes, but 17 minutes is pretty good for a rookie. That does mean that they kind of trust him to go out there and play against NBA talent. I'm surprised. I'm surprised he got 17 minutes. I'm hoping that does not mean they're going to try to sneak him in with Gordon. I hope they kind of separate those two since they both kind of play very similar roles on this team. But in 17 minutes, and this is why fantasy analysts got to have a big boner for Jonathan Isaac. In 17 minutes, he had 8 rebounds and 2 blocks. Now, he only went 2 for 3 and scored 4 points, so that's not a ton. He did have 3 personal fouls, so that's a lot of fouls in 17 minutes. But it looks like he's going to be he's projected to be a fantasy stud. 8 rebounds and 2 blocks in 17 minutes is obviously an incredibly small sample size, but it's something that's caught my eye. So in standard leagues, I'm keeping an eye on him just to see what happens there. And in deeper leagues, I'm taking a flyer on him because, I think he could be pretty good. Obviously, in the long term in keeper leagues, he should definitely be on. So let's go to our, I guess we're gonna call it the surprising performances of the night, and legitimately anything. And I've already talked about Bob Covington, so I'm not going to fall over myself about Bob Covington, and I'm not going to fall over myself with Boogie's 7 block night, and I'm not going to dwell on things that are kind of obvious. Like your first round draft pick had a great night. Great. That's not a surprising performance. To me, surprising performance is either some guy out of nowhere who had a great night or a really good player having a bad night. And I think we're going to try to focus on those just so we can give kind of a take on whether it's something that's going to be sustainable, whether it's something if that unknown player had a good night, or if it is something, maybe not an unknown player, but maybe a lower drafted player had a good night, or if a good player had a bad night, is this something to worry about? And we're going to focus on that simply because I think those are the things that people are interested in when it comes to fantasy. So let's start out with someone I was actually fairly surprised about, Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris started out the game on fire. I think he had like 17 points in like the first half or the first quarter even. For Detroit. And he ended up finishing this game with 27 points, 4 3-pointers, 10 rebounds, and 3 assists, shooting 61%. Obviously, if Tobias Harris is not owned in your league, I would like to join your league immediately because you play with a bunch of morons. But Tobias Harris is always standard league relevant. But is he this good? Is he someone who's going to be dropping 27 and 10 a night? I am not jumping on the Tobias Harris breakout bandwagon. Obviously, he's only 25 years old, but it's been one game. Is he capable of breaking out at 25 years old? Yeah, it's rare, but it happens. And I'm interested in Tobias Harris now, at least watching his progress, seeing how he plays. But to me, Tobias Harris, I feel like we have a good feel for who he is. He does have more of a role in Detroit's offense, it looked like, at least with the glimpses that I had of Detroit tonight when I tuned into the game over some other games halftime. And Tobias Harris, I've always kind of had a thing for him ever since back in the Orlando days. I more think this is going to be a situation where he gets off to a really hot start and he's a perfect sell high candidate. He's going to look really, really good, and that's going to trick some new players and different owners. The fact that he's 25 does give me pause. It does make me go, maybe I should hold on to him a little bit longer. But I would sell high on Tobias Harris, not after tonight, unless you get a crazy offer or you can get someone really, really good for Tobias Harris. But, yeah, Tobias, I'm keeping an eye on him. He is one of our surprising performances of the evening. I'd like to also give a special shout out to Terry Rozier. Marcus Smart did, I think, twist his ankle, but he did play on that twisted ankle, so I don't think it was anything terribly serious from what I have been reading on NBA Twitter. And against the freakiest Greek of them all, the Boston Celtics ended up losing, but Terry Rozier ended up playing 27 minutes off the bench. And with Hayward's departure, we were kind of wondering, like, okay, who's going to be the person who kind of steps in here? And, there was kind of consensus, well, Tatum, who was already starting, is probably going to definitely play a lot more. And Tatum had a good night. He played 37 minutes. And he only had 8 points, but he had 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal, which is pretty crazy for a guy his size. Jaylen Brown, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 3-pointers. I think you should both of those guys should be owned in standard leagues. But Terry Rozier, like I said, off the bench, more of a facilitator than Marcus Smart is. And now the primary facilitator on the second team Rozier ended up having 15 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals with 3 3-pointers. That is a lot of really good stat lines from the kind of the outskirts, I guess they're not so much the outskirts anymore because that team had to move a lot of pieces around to end up with Kyrie Irving. And now that Kyrie is kind of running the team, he's going to need some people around him, and he's got a lot of young guys around him, and he's young himself. But Terry Rozier caught my eye. I don't think I'm ready to own him in a standard league like I am Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, because I do not know if Rozier's place in the rotation is always going to be 27 minutes a night. But he has piqued my interest with that stat line. And I guess that is why he was untouchable for the Boston Celtics for so long, simply because everyone was losing their minds about Terry Rozier. And it looks like he could be fairly legit. And if there's ever an injury, heaven forbid, on the Celtics with Kyrie Irving, Marcus Smart, I'd pick up Rozier instantly. But right now, I'm only owning him in deeper leagues and bigger leagues, anything above a 12-team league. In 12-team leagues, I'm streaming him. I don't think he's worth owning right now. If you have a crappy player on the end of your bench, well, pick Terry Rozier up, put him on the end of your bench. I'd rather have Dillon Brooks, my third Dillon Brooks callback of the podcast. If you had Dillon Brooks in your drinking pool, please take a shot right now. Yeah, I'd take a shot on Terry Rozier. Why not? Put him on the end of your bench if you need a point guard. You're low on point guards. Why not? There's no reason not to. This is the time to be taking chances. The first 2 weeks of the season, always take a chance. The worst thing that happens is you drop them later that day. Who cares? So let's see if we can find some disappointing performances tonight. Those are the tough ones. And I think there's going to be quite a few disappointing with the sample size being so low, there's going to be quite a few disappointing performances here at the beginning of this season. And one that stands out to me is Drew Holiday. Drew, for some reason, in this Pelicans game, and which Boogie Cousins was aggressively amazing, and ended up just destroying people, and then Anthony Davis ended up destroying people as well. But Drew Holiday, who played 39 minutes, went 2 for 11, 4 points, only 4 assists, 6 rebounds, and 1 steal. That's a very disappointing line. And the fact that Drew Holiday is going to suffer once Rajon Rondo comes back, not a great sign that, this first month period where he should be kind of thriving and kind of solidifying his role as the number one playmaker, he did not do that tonight. Now, I think anyone who's ever played with Boogie Cousins, who just takes the ball and puts up 21 shots, even though Anthony Davis put up 23 shots, there's just not a lot of room for Drew Holiday to maneuver on this team. It's not like they're, I didn't watch a ton of the game, but it's not like there's lots of plays being ran here. It's like, hey, Boogie Cousins and Anthony Davis are the most dominant big men in the league. Let's just give them the ball and let them go to work. And since that works, I don't know if it does work. The Memphis Grizzlies ended up beating them, so not that great. But I'm down on Drew Holiday, and I am worried about this. I know I said don't panic, especially with this small of a sample size, but I am worried about Drew Holiday. I'm probably gonna. Well, all you can do, you never sell low, so all you can do is kind of hold on to him. Hopefully he gets better, and hopefully he has some really good games here upcoming, and then move him. I'm going to have to trade Drew Holiday in the leagues that I own him whenever he ends up having, a week or two of good games, because I just think Drew Holiday, when Rondo comes back, it's not sustainable. With the Boogie Cousins, Anthony Davis situation, that's just not a good fit for Drew Holiday, even though he got all his money. But also that's another factor. He just got all his money. He's not playing for a contract right now, so a lot of negatives with Drew Holiday's performance tonight. I will give a shout out to Etuan Moore, starting tonight, 34 minutes, worth streaming in standard leagues, worth owning in deeper leagues. Respect to the former Bull, Etuan Moore. I like what I saw tonight. I've always liked Etuan Moore. I've always thought he's he's a pretty good player. Let's go out to another, I guess, surprising performance. Back to Detroit with Avery Bradley. Let's go over to Detroit. What was going on over here, Avery? Avery Bradley starting guard for the Detroit Pistons, only played 23 minutes. A little suspicious. Now, they were beating the Hornets, but I don't feel like they were beating the Hornets by enough for him to only play 23 minutes. He was 7 for 10 with 15 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist. Pretty lackluster. Now, one of the things we did not like about Avery Bradley going into this season is his move to Detroit. One of the things that made Avery Bradley so good is his ability to get rebounds from a guard position. Well, as anyone has seen, Andre Drummond is one of the best rebounders in the league, and he sucks up all the rebounds. Combine that with Tobias Harris sucking up all the rebounds that Drummond did not, and that's how you end up with two rebounds from Bradley. Also, this offense is not the Boston offense. Reggie Jackson had 8 assists tonight, which is pretty good for Reggie Jackson. Good for him. But the Boston offense had a lot of ball movement, and in the Detroit offense, Reggie Jackson runs everything. And I know that Isaiah kind of ran everything either, but there was just a lot more ball movement in Boston. Just trust me on that. I was also a little worried that Langston Galloway got 25 minutes off the bench and played more than Avery Bradley. That is suspicious to me. I do not understand why that happened. Galloway, 16 points, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, 3 3-pointers. That's a very good night from him. And I just don't like the look of it. Another disappointing line was, man, look at this guy. Stinky Johnson over here. Stinky Johnson, 0 for 13. Possibly a NBA record, or at least close to at least a team record. But he played 40 minutes because he is a fairly good defender. He had 4 steals, which is something to take note of, and 4 rebounds and 1 assist. So you're going to look at this. The regular fantasy basketball person is going to look at this and go, 0 for 13. This guy sucks. And if you're in a deeper league, you might start seeing some drops. But if I'm in a deeper league and I see Stanley Johnson dropped, I'm picking him up. And this is why. He took 13 shots, which means he's kind of got a green light to shoot. That also means Charlotte was probably leaving him wide open to shoot, and he kept missing and missing and missing. The Detroit somehow won with someone on their team going 0 for 13, which is quite frankly amazing. And especially against a team that's supposed to be a playoff team. So Stanley Johnson is doing something that is keeping him on the court. And it's his defense, obviously. This means he's going to be a starter moving forward. He's going to play starters minutes moving forward. And eventually he's going to be better than 0 for 13. Maybe he never develops a great shot, a great 3-point, whatever. But it's worth noting that he played 40 minutes. That's the stat that I'm most interested in here with Stanley Johnson. The 4 steals, that also interests me because I know Stanley Johnson can get good steals. Do I think he's Standard League relevant? No, I do not, even though he is a starter. But in deeper leagues, if you see Stanley Johnson dropped, go pick him up because this is a 1-game outlier. That's someone panicking and dropping someone who they think sucks, but they're dropping a starter. And if you're in a deeper league, every starter pretty much counts. And the fact that Stanley Johnson is a part of this offense will be a better part of this offense at some point in the season, but can get good steals, and steals are pretty hard to find that low on the waiver wire. I think that's a great sign. So like I said, in a standard league, I would go pick up Stanley Johnson. All right. So, for the third segment this evening, and I think I kind of covered some of these, I'm going to go with some of our targets. Who am I targeting and who am I picking up in my leagues? Like I said, deep leagues, Stanley Johnson. I just gave you one. Jonathan Isaac is interesting to me in much bigger leagues. In just regular standard leagues, I like Dylan Brooks. If you have Dylan Brooks in the drinking pool, please drink. I also liked Terry Rozier as a flyer at the end of your bench. I think he's interesting. DeJounte Murray played 25 minutes tonight. I would take a flyer on him as well. He is playing close to starters minutes on a team that, as a point guard, he had 16 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals. And Kelly Oubre. Kelly Oubre is someone I'd take a flyer on in a regular league. He played 32 minutes tonight. If Dylan Brooks is not available, I think I'd rather take a flyer on Dylan Brooks because of that situation in Memphis where, someone needs to play, and it looks like they're so shallow. Dylan Brooks is definitely going to play. But also, Kelly Oubre has proven himself that he can play, and Dylan Brooks really is still questionable. And so, yeah, maybe take a flyer on Kelly Oubre if you don't want to take a flyer on Dylan Brooks. If you don't feel as comfortable with Dylan Brooks that I do, take a flyer on Kelly Oubre tonight. 32 minutes, 14 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks, shooting 50% for the evening, and hitting 3 3-pointers. That is a fantastic line from Kelly Oubre, and yeah, go pick him up. I take a flyer on him. This is the time to take chances, and with your waiver wires, not tons of chances, but with your waiver wire, and you might as well do it. Let's real quick, because I wanted to brag, and that is what I'm mostly good at, is bragging. Last night we talked about Clint Capella's bad start to the first game of the season, and how that was a factor of playing the Golden State Warriors, and that they're playing Sacramento tonight. He'll probably he'll probably go 20-20 and be very, very dominant. And everybody who dropped Capella on night one is going to feel like a real idiot. Well, they certainly are going to feel like a real idiot, because he actually almost dropped 20-20. 22 points, 17 rebounds, 3 steals and a block and an assist. 10 for 12. 10 for 12. Clint Capella, he's going to have a really good year, especially against teams that are bad. They just got done playing the best team maybe ever assembled. Swaggy P is killing it on this team. That's how good that team is. The Golden State Warriors are. So no wonder Clint Capella couldn't play against the Warriors, who run tonight against a Sacramento team who is not supposed to be very good. Clint Capella put up 22 and 17. Very impressive. Eric Gordon, someone I kind of mentioned, who had a very good night last night, 25 points tonight. Pick up Eric Gordon if he is sitting around in your standard leagues. Go pick up Eric Gordon right now. Small sample size. Last night we were talking about how PJ Tucker, it's worth a flyer on him. Tonight, 2 for 3, 6 points, 2 rebounds. 2 of those shots that he made, the only 2 shots that he made, were 3-pointers. So, as Tyler mentioned, he's going to be good for points and threes and rebounds, and that's it. Well, tonight, not a very good night. Because Clint Capella is having a better night. And that's good to know. See what works, see what doesn't. I'm going to go take a look over at the Kings box scores as well, because the Kings interest me endlessly. Scalabassier with the start, with Zach Randolph sitting out, not playing, and Vince Carter coming off the bench, only playing 14 minutes. Very good signs for those people who drafted Buddy Hield or took a late round flyer on Scalabassier. For some reason, Scalabassier did not take a 3-pointer tonight, which disappoints me greatly. But he was 12 for 10 with an assist. 5 turnovers, that's pretty bad, but 12 and 10 is if that is sustainable, and he can start being a bigger part of this offense, Scalabassier could become a standard league relevant player. He should be owned in all bigger leagues, any deep leagues. He should definitely be owned. But Scalabassier, one of my sleepers of this year, someone I've taken in late rounds in some of my bigger drafts, and I think he's going to pay off now when Zach Randolph comes back. We'll see how these minutes play out. I think Zach Randolph will play a lot more minutes than Vince Carter plays, and like I said, sample size is small, so don't get your hopes up, everybody, with any of this stuff. I will, though, say it is promising to see that George Hill played 33 minutes. Buddy Hield played 33 minutes, took a ton of shots. Buddy Hield had 19 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. He was 8 for 17 with 3 3-pointers. So he also had 5 personal fouls. So that is interesting. De'Aaron Fox only played 24 minutes compared to George Hill's 33. But De'Aaron Fox looked really good. I caught the tail end of this game. And De'Aaron Fox looks like he's going to be really, really good. So if you're in a keeper league, if you could snipe him out, I doubt you're going to, because he had a pretty decent night. He only played 24 minutes, but took 15 shots and was 14 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds. That's very, very good for 24 minutes. And one of my breakout candidates Big Willie Stein, Chili Willie Stein, he took 15 shots. He was 10 for 15, 21 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks, and an assist from Chili Willie. I really like him this year. Chili Willie Stein is going to be very good. I'm going to wait on him. I'm not going to try to sell high on Chili Willie. Let's play this out. This team has to go somewhere, and the pure athleticism of Willie Stein is pretty impressive to see. And I saw him hit a couple mid-range jumpers, and I was confused. I was like, that can't be Willie Cauley-Stein, but it was. He was hitting mid-range jumpers, so his game is improving. I think he's got a lot of talent, and I also think he is part of the building blocks of the future of the Sacramento Kings. So I am holding on Willie Cauley-Stein even while he trends up. I am not going to try to sell high on him. So yeah, I think that is it for this evening. We covered a lot of the major points of the night, but there is still a lot of fantasy to go, and this small sample size makes it hard to make definitive moves. So take my advice. Don't panic. Exploit people who are panicking. Hit the waiver wires hard. Take flyers on random guys you've never heard of, like Dylan Brooks. That is right. If you had Dylan Brooks in your shot pool, you are dead now. And don't be afraid to sell high on a guy who has a hot start. You got to balance hot starts versus breakouts, right? Eric Gordon, probably a hot start. Willie Cauley-Stein, I'm willing to take the chance this is a breakout and not a hot start. And the reason behind that is just age, previous performance, and future opportunity. And what I mean by that is Eric Gordon is still going to be buried on this bench. Eric Gordon has played a lot of minutes tonight because Chris Paul is injured. And he's still part of a rotation, even though he is going to play probably close to starters minutes, or at least very solid bench minutes. He's still coming off the bench. And we've seen what Eric Gordon can do. He can hit threes at an incredible clip. But is he an all-around player? Not normally. He's been putting up better assists, better rebounds in the first couple games, but is he normally this good? No, I think this is just a hot start, and so I would sell him. I'd sell high on him. But Willie Cauley-Stein, on the other hand, he's young. He's got plenty of opportunity. He is the starting center moving forward on this Sacramento Kings team, and Cauley-Stein looks like he could break out. 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks. He's got talent. So that's why I say opportunity is also an important factor when you're judging between selling high on someone who's breaking out versus selling high on someone who is just having a hot streak. And if you're selling someone who has a hot streak, get someone of equal or a little bit greater value. Fine. But everybody's got a price. Even guys who are breaking out, there's a selling point for them. And if you can, get someone to pay a high dollar for Willie Cauley-Stein, if you can get like Marcus Sol for Willie Cauley-Stein, I would definitely do that. 100%. So I think that is it for the real opening NBA night. Thank you for joining me on this solo expedition. Tyler will be, I'm pretty sure, joining me next time. And we hope you will also. And if you like this podcast, you like what we've been providing over the off season and moving into the season, the number one thing you can do is rate us and review us on wherever you download podcasts, especially Apple iTunes, because I still think they own the podcast world, I guess. But it will take probably less than a minute to click how many stars you want to rank. I suggest 5, and write gibberish letters, or Mike sucks, or we want to hear more Tyler, or whatever you want to write in the review. I don't care. But 5 stars, that's what helps us. And those reviews help us get seen by more people, which helps us continue to provide this content and provide this podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Watch the Boxes. Hit me up with things you want to hear on this show, or if you have questions about your fantasy league. And I'm just happy the NBA is back. Good luck out there, everybody. Have a good one.